Hello everybody and welcome to the Sovereign Village Project. This is my third take of this video because it is so bitterly cold that my phone keeps shutting down. So I borrowed Gabby's phone. We're going to try this one more time and see if it works. But that's actually pretty relevant to the topic right now. We're talking about cold, we're talking about survival in winter. In any kind of SHTF scenario, heating and cooking are some of the most crucial elements of survival. Other than water and food, they're right up there, especially if you're pretty much anywhere in North America except for maybe, Mexico, Florida, any of those really warm climates. And even places like that can get pretty cold. And even in the warm places, you still have to cook. And so if we were to lose access to electricity and fuels like propane and natural gas or gasoline, diesel, those kinds of things, all of which are, reliant on the same system, which seems to really oppose folks like us living a self-sufficient life, it means we need to really focus on alternatives. If you look at the stated ideologies and agendas of those in power, for example, the United Nations and the many politicians in the US and in municipalities and states and at the federal level who subscribe to that ideology, they openly state that they want to push us out of rural areas and into their cities where we can be corralled and controlled much more easily. And it seems very self-evident that one way they're going to do that is cut off our access to fuel. And in fact, that's already occurring. You can see in California, you can see in Australia, in countries where it's a little bit more extreme, and in states where it's a little bit more extreme. You can see them already actively doing that. They cut off propane to a lot of food suppliers in California. They cut off propane, natural gas, electricity, oftentimes at crucial harvest seasons and things like that, with sea gas skyrocketing. And it seems like this kind of trend is going to continue. And so, in my mind, we can no longer count on running our homesteads with the aid of fossil fuels or electricity, other than what we can produce ourselves. And we will not survive without heat. We will not be able to cook our food. We will not be able to keep ourselves safe from, bacteria and things that are in uncooked food, and we won't be able to stay warm. And that really is at the forefront of my mind right now, is it's so cold right now, particularly because we're in a unique situation. We started this house building about February, and we've been just hot and heavy building that house. That's taken every bit of time and energy and money we have. So we're not ahead on firewood. We don't have any firewood cut or prepared. And so we've been scrambling because wood is our source of heat in that house. We've been every day, it's just a struggle to find firewood. And it's really, I'm very thankful for this experience because it's really showing me how drastic things could get and how hard it would be, because I still have the benefit of a truck. I still have, this gas saw and things like that make the harvest of firewood much easier. And I still have a space heater going as well. So if we didn't have those luxuries, how would we heat our homes? And so that's what I want to talk about, is the tools and the things necessary to cut wood, harvest wood, and bring it into the home. So of course, first we have the gas saw, and this can be still very useful even if we did not have access to fuels, because you can certainly stock a lot of fuel relatively cheaply. You can buy a fuel storage tank and store 50, 100, 500 gallons of fuel. And a gallon of this will go a long way in a saw. You'll cut a lot of wood on a gallon. So you can certainly prep, but it's definitely finite. You're going to run out of fuel at some point. And so that brings to mind the next step here in the chain, which is the electric saw. I love electric chainsaws. I will preach about these things all day long. They have so many advantages. I cleared this entire house site with this electric saw. I didn't have a gas saw at the time. Of course, there's things it's not going to do as well. It's not going to have as much torque and not going to take on gigantic trees. But most trees, this does a perfectly good job for me. And unlike a combustion engine, there's no explosion happening inside of it constantly. So it lasts a lot longer, and it seems to be really problem-free. It's just a great workhorse. This is a cheap Cobalt, maybe 150 bucks. There's all sorts of versions. Walmart makes one. There's nice versions like DeWalt's and Stills, and there's cheaper versions. The cheap ones do really well. They're just good to have. I think every homestead needs to have one, even in the city. And I think that actually every trunk in every car should probably have one for storms and the like. And another amazing advantage of this electric saw, it's battery powered, and with a couple of cheap solar panels, we have the ability to actually charge that. And I just pick these up at Harbor Freight and I stack them to the rafters, meaning I only have two now, but every time I have another 150 bucks or 300 bucks, I'll buy another solar panel. And I have the means to also chain those together. But you could actually trickle charge tools even if you didn't necessarily have batteries and inverters and all of that, as long as you had, because you could also do it in season. If you had a lot of sun, well, that means that if you can power your saw, you have extra electricity. That's time to chop firewood during the summer, and then it can season, of course. So that's an incredibly useful tool. Another one that's pretty underrated is the humble Loppers. I love Loppers for this situation because you can actually harvest really good size of firewood much quicker than sawing or anything like that. I just cut this morning. This little log, this size will actually work really well in my fireplace. It'll run out at night because you want a nice big log to burn slowly at night. But I could heat my home with this size, and it's going to be a lot faster than using, say, a hand saw like this or like this, which is still valuable to have. This is a good one for cutting higher branches. Good to have around. So loppers, I recommend stocking a couple, you know, have a few, have some backups, because eventually every tool breaks. And that's going to be something that you can't really make on your own. Next here in the line is the machete, an incredibly useful tool, very quick and easy to harvest wood. As well as having many other uses, hacking brush. It's, you know, a weapon. It's extremely useful. And with all of these tools comes sharpeners, files, and other sharpeners needed to keep them sharp. And so with these hand tools, you could really pretty sustainably harvest everything you needed. And there's also agricultural practices that can make this a little bit more feasible. One of them is pollarding, or coppicing trees. See all these little shrubby sticks coming out? Underneath there's a stump. This is a tree I cut down. It was an oak, I believe. And now it's growing back all these little guys, and they'll grow. And so what a lot of people do, Bill Mollison and Jeff Lawton are some permaculture guys that talk a lot about this, is they'll coppice that tree a little bit higher, and then they will let it grow to about the size that they can harvest it with hand tools. Particularly in third world countries where they don't have access to power tools, or they'll have a really good quality machete, and they actually know what time of year the wood is softest. It's often softest in spring, so they wait till that tree gets just the right size, and they go through and they just hack off firewood sized bundles, and they actually build their wood stoves around the size that their hand tools can harvest. They build really small fireboxes and stuff. So it's obviously that takes a long time to design your system that way, but that's how we should design our homesteads, is really consciously. And so oftentimes they will put these trees on the north sides of their crops. So they'll have, you know, some bushy crops and some lower crops, and then they'll have these taller pollarded trees just above them, and they're not blocking sunlight or anything like that. And they're still getting adequate sunlight. It's also good because you can do that same method for making mulch and all sorts of uses. But that's a long-term solution to heating your home if we're ever in a situation where we don't have access to fuels and we can't power our chainsaws, or our solar panels break down. So you truly can heat a home with hand tools. You can harvest wood. It takes a lot of foresight, and it takes, you know, a lot of preparation, and of course a little bit of hard work. But you know, I don't mind hard work, the hard work that comes with harvesting wood, because I don't pay for a gym membership. I just go out and I harvest wood, and that gives me a lot of exercise. You know, wood heats you twice, as they say. So just want to give everyone some food for thought on some tools. I really think hand tools are about the best prep you can have. Your canned food's going to run out. Your water filter's going to break. But like tools, I'll have this machete for my entire life. And when it breaks, I'll make a new wood handle. You know, this one I may not have for the rest of my life, but I can buy 5 of these and I'll always have one. So it's a cheap way to ensure that you're going to be able to work your homestead, and also have items for barter. If you're the only one with a solar panel that can charge, say, this chainsaw, you now have a barter item of immense value that's infinite. There's no shortage of trees all around the world, except for the deserts, of course. And you can have an item that people will desperately need really easily and indefinitely. So really encourage everyone to get all the really good quality hand tools, spend the money. I don't have a lot of fiat, but when I do, I spend it on tools. Tools are just invaluable and just always the right investment to make. So I hope that's a good food for thought. Everyone stay warm. It is cold out there, y'all. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.